Resolution to adopt and appropriate the 2019 budget. Sherri Cassidy, CFO, Financial Services.
Back-to-back Cassidys.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Sherri Cassidy, CFO. I'll start with item 10. I'm going to use the overhead to start with and just highlight a few things in the resolution. So on the first page here, try to get it down. The 2019 original adopted budget, we must recognize revenues and have available fund balance sufficient to cover the appropriated expenditures set forth in the annual budget. And we have done that with our document. Public hearings were held by the board on September 20th, October 16th, and October 18th, and November 8th was final direction. This provided interested citizens an opportunity to file or register any comments or objections, and also to hear any testimony. The next item is up to and including this date. The proposed budget has been open for inspection by the public and interested citizens, and the electors have been given the opportunity to file or register any objections. Attachment A that I'll go over next outlines the revenue, expenditure, and funds balance details, and all expenditure changes made to the preliminary balance budget to revenues and available fund balances are incorporated in the original adopted budget. And on the next page is a few items just to highlight. All county departments, elected offices, and spending agencies are prohibited from expending or obligating funds in excess of the total amount budgeted. And then number B is all departments, elected offices, and spending agencies are to follow all county policies and procedures as adopted by the board. This includes the personnel policies and procedures manual, the procurement policy manual, and all financial services policies and procedures. All board-approved projects, major projects with a total cost over $100,000, and all grants are required to be tracked with project numbers or CSR numbers within our financial management system. Revenues in excess of expenditures under TABOR automatically become reserves available to appropriate throughout the year or in the following year. Capital designated as replacements is to be returned into facilities management or IT as appropriate for disposal. Oh, and then one more item down there. All agencies that receive funding from the county shall provide an annual audit, and we always send out letters to those folks to get their audits. And then the last item is all approved changes are presented to the board, have been incorporated, and that's all of the final direction that we had on November 8th. All of those items have been incorporated. So our final appropriations is $374,559,803. And I'll briefly go through attachment A now. You go back to that one. So this is the original adopted budget book. This is attachment A to the resolution, the index or table of contents. This is the discretionary revenues. These have been updated. See if I can get the cursor up there. The upper section is all of our available revenues. This middle section is the restricted revenue sources. And then this lower section is the restricted revenue uses. So then the yellow line here, this is the total discretionary revenue available to the board to provide core services. That number's been updated a little bit from the preliminary balanced budget. This item it was also in the preliminary balanced budget. It's been updated just a little bit. So it's, right now we're at, the daily cost per citizen is about 48 cents. On this item, this is all of our revenues. This is the total revenues by major category. As you can see, we've got our sales and use taxes up here, and our public safety sales and use tax is this one here. And you can see that's our biggest area of revenues. Our property taxes are over here. These other legally restricted revenue sources, those are items such as highway user tax, federal and state grants through DHS or community corrections, and quite a few others of those. This is our original adopted expenditures by major category. Personnel is our biggest piece, so 61% of our budget is personnel, and then we have operating and capital. And that total is $374.6 million, as you saw on the attached resolution. This item is the general fund unrestricted expenditures. The county administration and the public safety pie pieces are broken out in the next chart, but this is how everything is broken down by expenditures and by funds and or by the general fund departments. On this one, this is the county administration, and as you can see, the biggest part of the county administration pie slice from the other chart is facilities. On this is the public safety part, so the sheriff is the biggest part on this. This does not include the public safety tax, this is just the sheriff general fund side. So the public safety tax adds another $25.8 million to this number to support the sheriff's office. This is the historical cost per citizen, so we are at $177 annually. That's similar to the other chart, but this is an annual number. This is the same chart as before. This is the comparison of the mill levy for the 10 largest counties in the state. Sorry. The property tax per citizen from the 10 county. This is a comparison of how much property tax our citizens pay compared to the other large counties. This is still the 2018 property tax numbers. We don't have the property tax statement for 2019 yet, but we always like to show this comparison as to the darker blue up here. This is your property tax money that actually comes to El Paso County, is these two. When you pay your property tax statement, then we have a lot of other areas that the property tax goes to, the schools, the city, district, like on this example, District 11, there's a library district, and like water districts. This chart is the local tax cost per citizen. This includes all of the taxes, and as you can see, we're still the lowest in the state for that. This is our critical needs that were funded in the 5-year financial roadmap. These bottom numbers is what was approved on November 8th, or what we had direction to include in the budget. So all of these items have been included in the budget. This is the final roadmap after the changes that was made on November 8th. And up here, we still have this reserve for Tabor. As I'd stated earlier, we won't know that number probably until March or April, so we want to keep that reserved if we have a Tabor refund. If we don't, then we will drop that into our emergency reserve. And then on the budget changes, these are the changes to the budget. This is the revenue budget, so we've got across the top is the sources of all the different revenues that goes this way, so sales tax all the way across, up and then down this way is who collects all of those revenues. This one is the changes in the base budget from 2018 to 2019. We have up here, this is the original adopted budget from 2018. This is one-time additional funding request that are being removed because they were only for 2018, so they're removed from ongoing. Then these are the items that were approved on November 8th in the roadmap. So these items were incorporated in. Most of these is because of the personnel changes. So that's why there's something on almost every one of them. And then this is the restricted and then the other funds. So that gives us a total. It's hard to see down there, but that's the $374.6 million. That's the total expenditure budget. On the original, and then this sheet is the budget at a glance. This is the one that we like to use all the time in our office. It gives a highlight, so we have all of the funds across the top, and then we have all of the revenue sources here. These are the unrestricted revenue sources, the restricted revenue sources, and then the expenditures for unrestricted and restricted. So this page gives a snapshot of the entire budget, including, with the revenues and expenditures all on one page. This is the fund balance sheet. This shows our available fund balances. So we had what we estimate will be the January 1st beginning fund balance. On the emergency reserve, this is our new emergency reserve. That's $3.1 million here. That was $1.5 million last year, and then we increased that with the roadmap. The $7.3 million, that's our required TABOR reserve. That's our 3% of our expenditures that we're required to set aside. And then the restricted revenues here. And then we add the revenues for 2019 estimates, subtract out the expenditures, and then we get the ending fund balances. And then everything that's left, we are putting in reserve. And then we do the same thing for all of the other funds. This is a different way to show the revenues. So this shows the revenues by major category across the top with all of the departments and offices along the side for who collects those. And then the same thing on the expenditures by major category. One of the things to highlight on this one is we have the personnel, and then we have reimbursements, and then operating capital, and then reimbursements there. One of the things that we always try to do is we use these negative numbers. These are credits to budget. So whenever possible, we back bill different agencies when we can, and that helps to reduce the amount of discretionary revenue that we need to operate all of the departments and offices. And then this is the restricted, and then the other funds. And that is all of our budget. Do you have any questions on this?
Any questions? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the audience, see if there's any questions. Does anybody in the audience have any questions on the budget? Come on down.
Hello, Mr. Pace, Woodman Hills Metropolitan District, 12058 Rio Seco Road, Peyton, Colorado. I had a question on the TABOR issues, and if someone who is smarter than I am in this area could give me a call or assist me with that, that would be super duper. So does anybody in here know anybody? I was reading on it. I didn't have a chance. So if someone could do that, you have my phone number. It may not be for here, but I have questions about TABOR reserves. And I'm not going to do it here. It would take too long. Okay?
All right.
So,
Great.
super.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? All right, I'll bring it up here for discussion and a motion then. Commissioner Vanderwerth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we get into deliberations up here, excuse me, on the dais, I do have a disclosure to make. My wife sits on the board of the Humane Society, and a very small piece of this budget includes a funding allocation to the Humane Society, and we've done that for several years now. So I just need to disclose this publicly and also make the statement that this will not affect my decision to vote on this budget. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you. I was with the Board of Health yesterday for about 4 hours. Mr. Gonzalez, Commissioner Gonzalez was there for part of the time as well. Just really can't tell you guys thank you enough. The Board of Health was very extremely grateful that we were increasing their budget to really help them fulfill the statutory requirements that are imposed upon them from the federal government and from the state government as well, from some of the different legislation. And so they will be adding some full-time employees to be able to address some of the critical needs that we have over there. So they send their thanks and their regards for that.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, I wanted to thank staff for the great work they did in putting all this together the last 2 months worth of, much longer work for you guys, but the 2-month process that we've gone through, very, very well done, streamlined. I think doing this in the second year, it was a little smoother for us, or at least for me as a commissioner, understanding the process from last year to this year, and made it a little bit easier. But the decisions are hard, but I was very pleased to see that we're taking care of our roads budget. Was one of the things that I think for constituents is a big priority, and it's definitely the thing I always get a lot of calls on, whether it's stretches of road grading, potholes. It's something that the residents really care about. And then also taking care of our personnel in this budget was, I think, very important, and taking care of those resources of our staff and our personnel for the county, I thought was very important. And as was already mentioned, the being able to highlight and get a little more money to public health and ensuring that our public safety needs are being met, I think are very valuable and important, and I'm very happy to see that addressed and supported in our budget. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Waller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just want to say, actually, I kind of pass along my thanks to the staff as well, but also to the citizens of El Paso County. We went through the Great Recession back in the 2008 to 2011 and 12 period, and had to cut a tremendous number of county services as a result of that. And we wouldn't be where we are today, being able to put more money towards personnel, be able to put more money towards roads and bridges, had the voters not approved the Tabor retention in 2017. And so I think certainly the citizens of El Paso County get it, understand it, and should be commended for their support in making that happen. But also, I think it took a lot of political courage on this board to do that as well. So I'd like to commend my colleagues for their support in making that happen as well, because without that, we'd be in much worse shape than we are today, and we wouldn't be able to fund those critical things that Commissioner Gonzalez pointed out.
Commissioner Vanderwood.
And I would also like to echo my colleagues' comments. There have been tough decisions that we've had to make here, both on the dais and also the staff. And there are, with the economy good, there's several things that we're doing that I think is very important to prepare ourselves in the county for the next economic downturn, which we know inevitably will happen. And this includes things like recapitalizing the road equipment so that when we have an economic downturn, we don't have to make a decision between fixing roads or cutting staff. We will put ourselves in a better place later because of some of the strategic decision-making that we've been making, both on the part of the staff and also on the part of this board. And I'm I'm thrilled to be a part of that. I know there's a distinct strategy in there. I do want to thank the staff for all the hard work that they do, because there's an enormous amount of decision-making being done at the staff with more than a dozen business units in the county about trade-offs of the budget between those business units. That is done before the budget comes before the Board of County Commissioners. And I know some of those are knockdown, drag-out discussions, and I appreciate the hard work that you've all have done, because that helps a lot to make it easier for us here on the dais. So I'll reiterate, I'm echoing my colleagues' comments and thanks to the staff and to this board for the thinking that they've done and the decisions they've made. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion then.
Move to approve the budget.
A second.
Second.
Okay. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Littleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Aye.
Commissioner Waller?
Aye.
President votes aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12.
11.
11,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
11, sorry. Yeah.
Resolution
really-
establishing and approving certification of El Paso County's mill levy for the 2018 property taxes payable in 2019, and allocate revenues from such property taxes, the specific ownership tax, and the sales and use tax among the county's various funds. Sherri Cassidy.
Can I have the overhead on this one? We do have a change on this. At the time we submitted this resolution, we didn't have all the final numbers. So I've passed out a new resolution for you. So there's two numbers that's changed on here. I have them. So the original resolution had the number on the left, the 6.719, and then the updated resolution is actually 6.713. And then down here, the amount that it's that'll be levied is, it went from 54.2 to 54.165. That did not change the budget document, Annie. It'll change slightly the amount that we're allowed to collect, but we always budget for 0.5%, 0.5% uncollectible. So we have slightly less than this even budgeted in our budget document, so that won't affect that.
Okay.
So any other questions on this?
Any questions? Okay, then. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Littleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Waller.
Aye.
President votes aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 12.
Resolution County Treasurer to make transfers as anticipated in the 2019 budget adoption. Mrs. Cassidy.
And this is the third of our 3 resolutions that we are required to pass for the budget, and this just authorizes the treasurer to make transfer between funds.
Okay. Any
Move to
questions?
approve.
Second.
Any questions based on that? I'll call the roll. Commissioner Littleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Waller.
Aye.
President votes aye. That passes unanimously.
Thank you.